The booster course path for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has been quite the success, so we're looking back at all changes and differences made for the returning courses in Wave 1 of the DLC. The final race of the Golden Dash Cup is Wii Coconut Mall. It's a multi-level indoor shopping center on Isle Delfino with alternate routes, featuring multiple conveyor belt escalators, a food court overseeing an enclosed garden, and a dangerous parking lot with patrolling cars. So how does the most recent update differ from past installments? Let's find out. Coconut Mall for Mario Kart Wii was inspired by Super Mario Sunshine, presenting a galleria with many piantas and a few spots where path choices could be made. For 3DS, the track shrunk, graphics were simplified drastically, and observers vanished. However, most options remained, and gliding was introduced for exiting the building. While the tour version came after that from 8 Deluxe, the course most likely was constructed with the mobile inclusion in mind, releasing less than 2 months apart. This recreation kept most of the gameplay but updated the visual presentation to be closer to the game's aesthetics, feeling a little more generic with its lack of piantas, omitted references to Isle Delfino, and escalator style switch to conveyor belts, but including a nifty Super Mario Bros. Mural. Conversely, the Switch version invited piantas and Nokis, and it mixed things up a bit at the parking lot, especially with the occupied cars that at first stopped moving altogether, but then became even more active than before after an update, at least when racing against other vehicles. Many other differences exist between all versions too. Let's begin with the gameplay changes. As we mentioned, the entire course was reduced in scale for 3DS, affecting navigation a bit. A new trick spot was introduced at the top of the steps of the mall entrance. In Wii, escalators reversed directions in 55-second intervals from the start of the countdown sequence, 51 seconds into the race, and once more at 1 minute 46 seconds, but then never again. For the handheld, the escalators toggled every 44 seconds indefinitely. Both Tour and 8 Deluxe have the directions flipped 35 seconds into the race, and then again 40 seconds later, but they move a bit faster in the Switch version. Tricking became possible at the top of the escalators ever since 7. Interestingly enough, Tour is the only version that doesn't allow for tricks to be performed off the handrails. The dash panels on the left side of the first fork were resized in Tour, with the second one moved closer. These are gone entirely in 8 Deluxe. Below, the dash panel by the down escalator was transformed like the previous set for both versions. And above, the ramps to the sides of the escalator became the Tour type, angled differently with others updated like these. Meanwhile, the ramp just beyond the Delfino Dream shortcut was repositioned. All of these ramps were removed for the booster course, but tricking remains possible. As for the Delfino Dream shortcut itself, the flooring inside and the catwalk beyond no longer were off-road for 3DS. The catwalk was blocked off for Tour, but not for Switch. However, the flooring inside the store became off-road again for 8 Deluxe, even tossing up splinters when crossing the sticky varnish. And railing was placed along the backside of the lateral path of the catwalk for the transformation. Spray from the fountain below can affect trajectory, at least for the Switch version. In 7, the grassy spot between escalators became a valid landing spot when it used to push racers onto an escalator before. Arrow barriers after this point in the redesign were replaced only by potted flowers, making it possible to be trapped on the left side for 8 Deluxe under certain conditions, much like the Vanilla Lake sign that is in the same spot as the Mii poster was. Further ahead, racers could trick off the spiral ramp when entering Coconut Garden for the revamp. Inside, all cabanas were removed in the area for 3DS. Dash panels once again have been stretched breadthwise for Tour and Switch, with the left one pushed back to the column. A vending machine and potted flowers replaced the arrow barrier, creating potential for obstruction. The edge of the second spiral ramp became accessible, even allowing for a trick here and for the mirrored copy beyond. And the reshaped dash panel at the food park was nudged forward. Arrow barriers at the lower exit path were swapped out for packages and potted flowers with minimal chance to be blocked here. The same applies to the seats that were placed all along the perimeter of the exit rest area. Both the lower and upper exit ramps became glide ramps in 7, only for one to revert back to a boosted ramp, the top one for Tour and the bottom one for Switch. The ramp below was thinned out and pushed further toward the opening, and the railing on the sides was taken out. In Tour, the upper exit ramp was given a bit of a steeper angle. While gliding, the exit arches could be hit, but other than the starting line arch, all were cleared out for the remake. For Switch, the ramp on the street also was removed, but it just was widened to fill the lane in the mobile version. 8 Deluxe offers the unique option to glide over the corner or even hop onto the curb to reach the area with the Shy Guy drivers. Originally, there were 3 of these vehicles, but they were reduced to 2 for 3DS, with those remaining in slightly different spots and behaving a bit differently. The dash panels here were removed when the lot was remodeled, and the Miis in the cars were replaced with Shy Guys. In the mobile version, these cars have slightly updated behaviors that take up more of the space, and for the booster course, they were modified to just idle in place diagonally. That is, until the release of Wave 2. With the exception of time trials where they remained unchanged since Wave 1, they now pace back and forth and even perform donuts that can run over racers at any speed. Look at him spin! There are more aesthetic changes here than shops in the mall. The sunlight and rays indoors remained in 7, but the sun itself disappeared from view. It returned for the glow-up. Clouds are different between all versions, but they are the same for Tour and Switch. And the original clouds drifted. The beach was stripped away for the handheld, only for it to come back for the makeover, being wavy rather than straight this time. A cruise ship and sailboats arrived too, with new islands in the distance. On land, a grassy hill was added in the background on one side, with various buildings substituting those surrounding the mall before. The number of outdoor palm trees was reduced for 3DS, and fewer hibiscus flowers could be found out here, leaving only the white type. Several giant variations close to the building were turned into other blue flowers. Distant lampposts at the far ends were omitted also. The palm trees were given a new look for the facelift, being roughly in the same spots as before, but with some removed and others added or even doubled up. One comically just sticks out of the pavement. All coconut palms on the raised part of the lot were put in planters, and other planters contain added hedges or flowering bushes, differing between Tour and Switch, replacing standalone flowers. The remaining distant lampposts disappeared, and those closer were remade and moved a bit, no longer featuring small banners. Compared to Wii, 7 had far fewer parked cars, and the street arrows and parking spaces were erased. These cars were replaced by a different set of vehicles for the overhaul, now including buses and PTT trucks with a lot island removed to make room for them. The central lane line on the starting line street vanished, instead appearing where the moving cars are, with the broken type following the curves. Stop lines were painted before and after each street bend. More side road markings were added along the streets, including the coastline highway, tracing the contours. The lot boundaries were adjusted at this point too. Even a parking attendant booth was built by the start of the moving cars area, with barrier arms placed at the nearby entry and exit points. All directory signs not on stone blocks were taken down for 3DS, except for one. These originally revealed a potential early name for the course, Bayside Mall. And there were 3 Coconut Mall signboards by the highway initially, but only the middle remained. This was swapped out for a Toad Toy Store sign for the latest versions. The lone directory was removed and those on blocks, now made of brick, were replaced by sponsors. More sponsors can be found around the parking lot, including on trackside banners where arrow barriers used to be. Piantas and Miis everywhere from Wii abandoned the course, aside from the Miis in the cars. Other spectator types came for the remake, arranged differently between Tour and Switch. And Piantas are back for 8 Deluxe, even bringing Nokis with them. Little birds just had to join in too. At the starting line, the banner originally had a classic font with orange and yellow gradient on a golden yellow arch. Matching all other arches, this became shorter and was given distinct stripes following the contour, with no polygon lighting errors anymore. The 50x4 checks in crimson, magenta, and white became 37x3 checks in white and 2 shades of red, with a starting grid included. For the redesign, the banner archway was transformed into twin palms cradling a couple of shopping bags, with a wooden sign displaying the modern Mario Kart logo in solid yellow. Thank you no longer is displayed on the other side, and the starting line checks decreased further to 25x3 in white and 2 shades of orange. An MKTV van can be seen nearby in 8 Deluxe. For 7, the main Coconut Mall logo shrank. Fewer windows were in each section, but with proper framing as a general texture change. Meanwhile, the exterior walls became brick. Much like the support pillars, the wall trim was retextured to match the starting line gate, It was made thicker and even corrected errors from Wii. Stairs at the unused side entrances were taken down, and the large hibiscus banners universally were exchanged for recolored palm banners. For the revamp, the Coconut Mall logo was simplified, leaving out the pianta and hibiscus flowers. Even fewer windows are present for some parts of the exterior, with all having different reflective properties for Switch. However, new low-set windows were installed behind the colonnades, which now have more columns and a covering, above new dark steps spanning the perimeter for both recent versions. Various trim was added or updated around the building as well. Additionally, a roof was placed above the part where drivers exit the mall. The hibiscus banners were restored, but fewer banners were present overall. They now hang on brackets, and those at the main entrance swapped places, and flower boxes were put by the more embellished steps. Inside the main lobby, the entire upper area was simplified for 3DS to exclude the top floor, including the enclosed catwalk above the entrance. Mii adverts all over were pulled out. With the disappearance of piantas, escalators were marked with up and down arrows that toggled with the reversals to help guide racers. The first information sign for toilets and lift, restrooms and elevator, was removed, while support for the second sign was simplified. Small banners beyond the first pair at the entrance were omitted, and hibiscuses along the planter between escalators and a dwarf coconut palm were replaced by another flower type in 3 primary colors. For the reconstruction, lights were installed above the doorway, and gray diamond tiles, offset for Switch, between small brown square tiles substitute the pale checkerboard tiles. Sponsor ads are seen between the different wall trim, appearing in the same general spots as the Mii ads were in the original. Tiny banners vanished, never to be seen anywhere again, much like these arrow barriers. All toilet signs changed design and information, and they now hang by less obtrusive bars in most cases. Escalators became more like conveyor belts with brightly colored arrows, rather than having any semblance of steps. Featuring different flora, planters between escalator pairings were simplified, not having the Coconut Mall logo anymore, and the coconut emblem was excluded from the escalator grate redesign. Beyond this point, shop names and interiors were rearranged in 7, no longer having depth. Some wall trim was left out, as well as the glass on the other side of the first set of escalators, which never made any sense anyway. Ceiling lights in the main halls vanished, leaving only natural skylights. At the same time, hibiscus flowers were removed from behind the banister, and all interior red banners turned blue, and their text was either omitted or stretched out. For the renovation, tiles for the upper floor became the small type, with white tiles forming mosaic lines, along with darker tiles around the edges and yellow trim along the wall. But the floor below was given the gray diamond pattern with blue trim. A wavy catwalk with narrow space was built under the long, now divided skylight, and light fixtures have returned to the ceilings. Both of these floors have new storefronts. While some still repeat throughout the mall, others have unique designs, like the toy store and this branch of the Fireflower Curry House. Spicy. But some others are blank. The floors also had their arrow barriers transformed into trackside banners with striped purple backing. In addition, the restyled columns now have decorated flowers in mounted pots, and other planters can be found by the down escalator. Railing of this kind was rebuilt with glass panes. A single large banner remains, hanging differently, while the 3 others were replaced by 2 palms in the inaccessible area beyond, with grass and edging. Cushioned benches surround the distant walkway, with another bench by a new vending machine, and another planter with flowers is by an unnamed shop. All toilet signs in this area up to the next escalator were removed but one, which was nudged a bit, but oh, a new one appeared past the toy store. In the handheld version, the tile transition at the lower level near the second down escalator started a bit later than it did in Wii, and both the hibiscus flowers and base here disappeared. Now, the barriers before the descent into the central hub are different between post-refurbishment versions, roadblocks for Tour and crowd control fences for Switch, and the arrow barrier directly below became a set of stanchions with velvet rope. At the Delfino Dream clothing store shortcut, the outfit selection was narrowed to just suits and sailor tops for 3DS, and the shirts behind glass vanished from the case's cut transparency. Spotlights on the simplified rafters were reduced from 4 to 3 and relocated. Textures all around the shop changed, especially the counter that stopped showing images of items. Since the remodeling, Delfino Dream no longer has a sign indicating its name, but it's still a clothing store, which now displays its haute couture in a glassless case outside. Inside, the general architecture is the same, but the presentation is entirely different and more professional, featuring shirts, hats, shopping bags, frame sponsors, an arrow sign, updated decor, a new lighting system, wooden flooring, doors, and even a POS terminal. Furthermore, the wood orientation differs between mobile and the booster course here and beyond. In the central hub, the spinning Coconut Mall ball, ropes included, above the fountain was taken down in 7. Meanwhile, the fountain itself produced a different spray style, had vertical stripes rather than horizontal, and stopped using bricks. The basement level below turned into basins of water with walls blocking off the center and only palm trees sticking out, while the nearby edges switched from grass to trim, omitting the flowers. Shops in the out-of-bounds area here lost their awnings. The flowers between the escalators just after the fountain were plucked, and the information sign was attached to the reworked ceiling rather than support bars, no longer stacked with another. For the redesign, orange diamond tiles substitute the large crystalline tiles. Instead of water, grass and rocks filled the basins, and another palm joins the left one. Trackside banners were added along the railing on this side, and the railing opposite the grass is a different color now. This is where wood replaces the checkerboard tiles on both sides. More wood supplants the carpeted area on the floor above, after the mosaic line tiles. And the arrow barriers after Delfino Dream became rope stanchions. The skylight above the fountain now has a radial dome frame and accents along the reshaped ceiling, while the second skylight at the top of the escalators is fashioned much like those in the earlier corridor, with the same wavy trim. Fountains have a similar, albeit different, look as before, without stripes. In 8 Deluxe, they spray higher and have splashback. For both new versions, the toilet sign just before the twin escalators was removed. There are no large banners above this spot or in the out-of-bounds area left of the fountain anymore, but the flooring out here became fanned cobblestone. This paving is more desaturated in Tour compared to Switch, with dark mortar rather than light. Awnings returned to these shops for the remake, but with variety, and the Toad Toy Store ad is in roughly the same spot as the Me ad from Wii. For 3DS, the flowers along the simplified edge of the spiral metal ramp from the original were taken out, and light stopped shining on the coconut palm. Now, the spiral ramp has a new design with various stripes and a line of lights, while the walls have become brick with a Super Mario Bros. Style course layout, complete with blocks, warp pipes, and question blocks. Oddly enough, the ramp has a much darker color around the lights in Tour compared to Switch. A second palm tree joined the established one, and the base became grassy with varied flora. In the corner above where drivers enter the area, a lone flower pot now rests. The ceiling opened up for uninhibited sunlight to enter, with a bit of a tower part revealed above the entrance to Coconut Garden. But the Coconut Garden sign was taken down. Regardless, the steps leading down to the courtyard were remade a bit. Fanned cobblestone in Coconut Garden was replaced by the same checkerboard flooring as earlier in 7. The Coconut Mall sign seen when looking back was removed, and flowers on the islands here and above the awnings went poof. Like before, information signs in this area were attached to the ceiling directly. For the facelift, the Coconut Garden sign on the other side of the entrance was swapped out for a toilet sign, with no other such signs beyond this point, and a Shy Guy Records poster was put on the side of the left portico. The cobblestone flooring returned, albeit more radial. Concurrently, the stripes of each island were simplified, but each edge was given a lip, and both greenery and flowers grew around the palms. Flowers and planters were placed above the more diverse shop awnings on the left, with ledge grass removed and adjacent brick made into basic trim. Lanterns were installed on this side too, and shop windows all around here became generic with nothing seen beyond them anymore. The walls matched the mall exterior, trim included. While the large banners were reduced to just 2, the hibiscus type returned to the area. The pillar style was modified also, with the middle 2 on the right shortened to make room for a long window. Ceiling lights, fewer than the original, returned to the overhangs, and a chevron sign on the left was replaced by an edge housing a grassy space, with a potted flower put nearby. For 3DS, the final island by the second spiral ramp disappeared, except the palm. An inner wall was added to the ramp that otherwise had the same alterations as the first, but a brick texture was applied to the wall on the other side. And the revamp has a Camex bookstore poster in place of the Coconut Mall sign on this wall. The second and third spiral ramps are like the first, but without the Super Mario Bros. Course design. For 7, the wooden flooring in the food park switched to the tile standard, and fewer columns could be found around here. The first information sign in the area was fixed to the ceiling with no sidebar. These awnings became limited to just those around Cocoa Burger, and the item patterns behind the glass displays stopped being visible. When this area was redesigned, Cocoa Burger became food park, or part of it, as indicated by the new sign replacing the awning facing racers, with the other awnings removed. Unless Cocoa counts, all reference to Cocoa Burger was eliminated, making the name possibly for the group of fast food outlets or for one big eatery. Food park counters, display cases, and menus all were almost completely reimagined, and food items, back counters, and even a drink dispenser were added. The associated pillars became a matching flat gray with no more blocks used for them or the overall design of the food park hub, and railing around the counters was removed. A Wendy Donut sign was placed just beforehand, while a Princess Orange logo was attached to the drop ceiling. Seating was added on the left patio, consisting of benches, umbrellas, and drinks. Wooden planks substituted the checkerboard floor like in Wii, even covering the patio grass. Railing here changed a bit, and floor trim was applied to the perimeter as well. The outer pillars became like those in Coconut Garden, but straight, with colors inverted. Lights along the drop ceiling were restored, and the ceiling for the outer food park was given a darker inset, with large lights lining the path. The shops right of the spiral ramp became unnamed and an awning returned, and chevron barriers here were swapped out for rope stanchions. The second floor yellow baseboard resumed at the end of the food park onward at this level. For 8 Deluxe, a crowd control fence was placed by the end counter. Beyond here on the handheld, the skylight of the lower exit was expanded and shortened, showing the ceiling by the opening. Fewer flowers could be seen here, with their leaves plucked. In the recreation, the checkerboard flooring that had larger checks compared to the food park area switched to diagonal black and white checks with detailed facets, and the walls were given different trim and accents. Frame sponsors lined the walls leading to this exit, with some on the left side in similar positions to the Mii posters in Wii. The skylight pane count increased, with framing rounded at the edge and the orange ceiling now gray. There are fewer window panes, although they do not have perfect alignment with the outside, and completely different flowers and leafy plants replaced the others in this final Palm Island. The straight ramp of the upper exit in 7, like all glass, became opaque, and flowers here disappeared. For the overhaul, the skylight for the final spiral ramp was made concave and rounded, featuring more panes with the overall trim turned from blue to orange. Sadly, the "Have a nice day" sign was left out. A flower pot was tucked just to the left of the dash panel, and both the glass flooring and grass became an extension of the ramp with matching texture, which is illogical, considering the skylight was kept for the lower exit below. But a new skylight, much like the previous, was placed above the final enclosed area of the exit. And trim here was redesigned like the exterior, with more framed sponsors added, and even a Coconut Mall sign like that in the parking lot was placed on the back. Outside again, a second MKTV van is seen to the left in the booster course. Seagulls fly around here in this version too, and one last MKTV van is parked just before the finish line. There's one final visual difference, and that's how the results screen reveals an older development build of the course when compared to the official release. Oops. A few auditory changes could be heard as well. In the original, the murmur of the crowds filled the upper floor near the entrance, central hub, and food hall. This ceased for 3DS. Tour is devoid of most environmental sound effects, including those from the parking lot cars. On the other hand, 8 Deluxe has sounds of fountains, seagulls, and the revving and bouncing of automobiles, but no horns. However, the general crowd chatter did not return, other than cheers coming from some Toads and Yoshis. Gotta love those positive vibes. And the music for Coconut Mall certainly is upbeat too. It's a freeform jazz akin to ragtime, with multiple coastline cultural influences, much like the themes of the course's source of inspiration, Super Mario Sunshine. Piano, mute trumpet, sax, mallet, organ, accordion, steel drums, and a shuffled beat serve to accomplish this quirky tropical blend. Even the sound of an elevator bell helps establish the setting. The original version has been the leading archetype, with not much exclusivity other than its quality and mixing, but the intro has constant, rapid shakers joining the crescendo of instruments, and the hi-hats in both the A and B sections have a distinct, shuffled rhythm. How fun! The 3DS version is essentially the same, but with lower fidelity and a different reverb environment. However, a special arrangement of the tune appeared in Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Winter Olympic Games, featuring lots of punchy beats, brass, and an extended part that dials it back before ramping it up to a climax. Sega did a great job with it. As suggested, the Switch arrangement follows the source closely. There is an overall filter on some instruments that produce an almost lo-fi effect. The shakers in the intro are more refined and selective, while the hi-hats for the A and B sections are presented a bit more dynamically, albeit still shuffled a bit. Meanwhile, the mute trumpet after the half step up more serves as a counterpoint rather than supporting the melody. Accents in the B section exclude the mute trumpet, but shakers were added. And the end of the D section no longer has the agogo bell like xylophone playing until near the loop point, but the snare rolls really kick in here. Now that's fit for shopping Isle Delfino style. And that's about it for all changes we found in Wii Coconut Mall. While the redesign is not as visually impressive as the original was for its time, and some style choices like the escalators are odd, most of the elements have a good look and feel, especially the redeemed Shy Guy drivers, making this track one where we're happy to be Coconut Malled. But what do you think? Have you found any notable changes that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more coverage of the Booster Course Pass for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and other things Nintendo too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao!